Arteta.
Oh, I never get this right. Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. Don't mind me, okay? I'm not really struggling this morning, but your girl's tired just a little bit. So we just threw the hair up in a bun and just said, you know what? They love me anyway. We'll survive with this going on, okay? So don't mind me. But good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is for you. Thank you for joining me for another Arsenal news show, going over the most recent Arsenal news, transfer news. So make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Ashoke, happy birthday. I hope you have a good birthday and you get everything that your heart desires on today. So yeah, happy birthday to you. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about Gabriel Jesus. Is he injured? What the impact would be on Arsenal in the next couple of weeks if he was to be out for a little bit of time, and who would be Declan Rice's best partner. I think over the last couple of weeks, we've seen that Declan Rice has been more than worth 105 million that we paid West Ham for him. He has been outstanding and probably our best and most in form and consistent player since the season has started, which is great. Good news for us because you want to feel like you got value for money. And we definitely have. £100 million signings are not known to do very well. So I think Arsenal so far, we're like, so far, so good. But there is an imbalance in midfield. And somebody made a comment yesterday on, I think, the watch along and said that they felt like Declan Rice was hurting the team because he didn't have certain things in his game that Thomas Partey and Xhaka had in their game that balanced the midfield. And from my perspective, that's a recruitment issue. You know, it's a recruitment issue. All of the, reporting that came out said that the Havertz and Rice signings were connected. You can't buy Havertz without buying Rice. That's what they said. And so far, we've seen Havertz play left center mid a handful of times, maybe 5 times at the most. And, for the other couple of games, he's either been on the bench or playing a center forward role. And for me, that is a massive, massive, massive red flag in terms of recruitment. If this is somebody that like we bought specifically to play with Declan Rice, then he needs to be playing with Declan Rice. And if he's not, then Arsenal need to be in that transfer market looking for somebody, because right now I'm looking at the midfield and I'm thinking, we have a bit of a problem here. But first, we need to talk about Gabriel Jesus, who had a fantastic game yesterday. So get in the chat and let me know what you guys are feeling about Gabriel Jesus, a player that I think a couple of weeks ago, if you asked about him, people would be saying, oh no, we need to get rid of this guy. Now people are turning around and saying something different. So I want to know what y'all got to say. But let's go through some of these comments. Let's see who's in here. Boy says, give it to ESR Havertz and tell them to play in both directions. I think talking about who's the best partner for Declan. Cal says, time for Ramsdale to move on so Arteta can concentrate on his so-called best goalkeeper. Raya is making worse mistakes, but Arteta doesn't like Ramsdale, so Ramsdale should flee. I mean, I don't think that Ramsdale will be here that long if he's not really playing as a number one goalkeeper for Arsenal. So I think it's fair enough to say that maybe he should, look for somewhere else to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't. In terms of, Arteta not liking Ramsdale, I feel like that's a little bit of like an emotional response. Like, I don't think it's so much that Arteta doesn't like Ramsdale. It's he's asked Ramsdale to do certain things and Ramsdale didn't want to do them. And that's not even coming from Arteta. That's literally coming from Ramsdale. And to be honest with you guys, I think we've done the Ramsdale Raya thing to death on this channel, at least. We've had many conversations about it, and you guys know my stance on it. I think that, Raya deserves just as much a time and, respect and support as we would give anybody else that's coming into the club. And he has not received that at all. In fact, he's being abused online, and his comments telling him to get out of the club. When he's playing, he doesn't get the support from the fans within the stadium either. He's come in and become enemy number one based on the manager's choice. And if you want to be frigid and, disrespect anybody based on this decision, it should be Mikel Arteta and not David Raya, because he's a part of our team. We should want him to do well. Just like people were asking me to give Kai Havertz time, you guys need to keep that same energy for David Raya, who is probably our number one goalkeeper right now. So he becomes even more important than ever. So you may not like the way Ramsdale has been treated. You may think that Ramsdale is the better goalkeeper, but we're in a situation now where David Raya is playing games for Arsenal, very important games. And so it's important to get behind him, despite feeling like maybe you'd want somebody else in goal. And to be honest, it's just like, I don't really understand, like, at this stage, like what else do we need to talk about? Like, either you think Ramsdale's the better goalkeeper, or you think Raya's the better goalkeeper. It is what it is. But I did tell you guys that Partey would need to be upgraded upon this past summer. You guys yelled at me because Partey is the best DM in the world, and how dare us try to upgrade upon him, only for him to be injured and unavailable for 7 out of 12 games so far this season. Thank God we did upgrade upon him and brought in Declan Reiss, who's been our best player. I even told you guys when Ramsdale first came to the club, when people didn't want him because he had been relegated a couple times, that didn't matter. And we just needed to wait and see, because he is a good young goalkeeper. He ended up being a good young goalkeeper. So there's that. And, Ben White, a player that I didn't even really rate that highly, was really poor in his debut against Brentford and got bullied by Tony. People thought he was awful and were on this channel telling me how poor he was and what a bad signing he was. And even though I didn't rate him, I said, you need to give him time. So there's plenty of examples where I feel like what I felt deep down was right. And so I'm going to go with my gut. You go with how you feel. But for Raya, for us to go through what we went through with Ramsdale, and for him to talk about multiple times how he was abused for just being at Arsenal before he even kicked a ball, for Raya to be getting the exact same treatment 2 years later, it's like we never learn, So I'm going to give Raya more support and more time, because he's important to the team. And again, he wouldn't be in the team if Ramsdale would just do what the manager wanted him to do. So if you want to be mad at anybody, I would direct that to Mikel Arteta and not towards Raya, because he's just doing his job. Chosen One says, what's up, Jess? I'm here with you guys. Never better. Ashoke says, afternoon, Jess. Oh, yeah, you said it's your birthday. Keenan says, Trossard at left center mid and Havertz is at striker. We have a chance against Sheffield to try some different things, so I will be interested to see some players drop to the bench and, get some rest or some rotation, and some other players, just in case, because we're going to need some other options, I think. I think we're going to need some other options. Maybe at center forward to see if Havertz can do it. We might want to see, if somebody else can, maybe Havertz can play right center mid. I don't know. We need to try something else. Trossard at left center mid. Chosen One says, Jess, this is not related at all, but I was wondering who you think the best player in the world is. I think the best player in the world, it's so hard not to say it's Messi, because I do feel like if this is in regards to the Ballon d'Or, like I think Messi probably he deserves it. When you look at the numbers that he put up and stuff like that, and then, winning the World Cup, I think it's hard to overlook him. But if you just ask me without Messi, be like without any of that context and who I just think the best player on the planet is, it's Mbappe to me. I think even when he's at a poor PSG team and all that kind of stuff, when you see him play, you just see that he has certain qualities that nobody else in the world has. He's still young. For me, Mbappe is the best player in the world, but I think Messi does deserve the Ballon d'Or, if that makes sense. So yeah, Keenan says, I said it when he came back from Brazil injury, his career is finished. We rushed him back too fast, and he will constantly be getting injured from here on out. I think talking about Jesus, I think it's a little premature to say that his career is finished. Are you talking? Who are you talking about? You can't be talking about Jesus. Maybe. Yeah, you're talking about Jesus. I don't think his career is finished. That's a little, I think, premature. I think what you can say is that we're not going to be able to rely upon him. Like, he's not going to be a 99% of the time player in the team. He's somebody that we're going to have to I think we will bring in somebody else that can play center forward, and then he can play off of the wing and through the center and all that kind of stuff as well. But to say his career is finished, I think is a little bit much. And we don't even know if it's a knee injury or not. In fact, they've called it a hamstring. So yeah, I don't know, you know. Um it's a hamstring, so what does that have to do with his knee? So yeah. Let's go ahead and look at what or listen to what Jesus actually said about his injury yesterday, or his potential injury. We will listen to it here as soon as I get the right setup. Yep. And yeah.
And how are you feeling? Arteta said you got a little bit of a tight hamstring there.
Well, let's see.
I mean, you looked exhausted.
Yeah, I was tired, to be honest, but I never wants to go out. Obviously, he will always respect the manager, the size, but was not the case. Unlucky, but unfortunately. But let's see if it's what it is.
And how are you feeling, Arteta?
So yeah, he is basically speaking about the hamstring, and he also said that he doesn't think it's a bad one. So what he considers bad is kind of like, he could be saying like, oh, it's not a bad one, it's not an ACL. You know what I mean? Or it's not a bad one, it's not a knee issue. But if it is a hamstring, that does mean he'll be out for a couple of weeks. Remember how Martinelli was out for a couple of weeks too. So Martinelli, I don't know how many weeks was Martinelli out, maybe 4, maybe more. So that would be really disappointing, considering we just kind of got the connection between Jesus and Martinelli back. Watching the game back, rewatching it, it was like, okay, that's exactly what we needed. I think, as like the thing is, I don't like talking about Eddie because it's such a contentious topic, and people, we all know I've said it before, I don't think he's good enough, and he hurts us in terms of like connections with our wingers and blah blah. But Jesus and Martinelli have a connection that unlocks the left half space. He drops in kind of like into that 10 role on the left-hand side. He drops in deep and then finds Martinelli, in space. There's just things that they do as a pair that we saw a lot of last season that we haven't seen at all this season, because they haven't really played together. And the left side has been so disjointed, with different players playing at left back and different players playing at left center mid. So I think it was nice to see that they still have that connection, and that's a fruitful connection for us. I mean, it's goals and assists, for both of them. Jesus gets a goal and assist. Gabriel Martinelli gets a goal and probably should have 2 from Gabriel Jesus's assist. So we need Gabriel Jesus to be fit. We need him to get a run of form, because we know that when other players are playing up front, we just don't have the same connections for our wingers. I think Jesus is just as important to Martinelli as Odegaard is to Saka. And so when those connections are broken, we just don't look like the same team, and we don't have answers for it right now. So he's He's one of those where he's so important. And I get that, you know, he's not the most clinical finisher, but my God, the finish, the second goal, my goodness, the finish on that, like he has the ability to do things from an individual perspective that not a lot of our players have. Like he has individual quality. And I've said it so many times that Gabriel Jesus for me is a world-class player. He's just not a world-class finisher. That's why he'll never be considered a world-class striker. But when you put him anywhere else on the pitch, he's world-class. Like he can do things that other players just cannot do. The little flick behind his leg, the Cruyff turn or whatever, and into space to Martinelli. That was a really good performance from him. And he's going to be so key for us in Champions League. His like record in Champions League is so good, by the way. Like I didn't realize how good it was, but I have his numbers here. I think of the last 17 starts. I think, let me see. I bookmarked it. Gabriel Jesus's last 17 starts in Champions League, he has 14 goals and 4 assists. That's very impressive. For a player that people say doesn't score goals and, you know, we need to move on from, I'm not comfortable like with the conversation around moving Gabriel Jesus on right now. I think the whole thing is like, oh, well, I want to upgrade on this player, so this player has to go. I don't necessarily feel like I don't think it has to be that. Like, you know what I mean? I think there's other players in the team that are we clearly need to upgrade upon that also need to go. Gabriel Jesus is not one of those for me. We spoke about it the other day, I think on player ratings, that even if you feel like we need another number 9, which we probably do, having Gabriel Jesus in your team still makes us a lot stronger. And so I never entertained the idea of getting rid of Gabriel Jesus just because we need a clinical number 9. We need to move Eddie on. We need to move Nelson on. You know, those are players that need to probably find other places to be, you know? So I'm loving Gabriel Jesus right now, but I'm just a little bit concerned that maybe this hamstring is, even though he said it's not a bad one, he could be saying it's not a bad injury, meaning it's not a knee injury or anything like that. Hamstring is not the end of the world, but it will keep you out for several weeks, which we can't do that right now. Like, and we can talk about if he is out, who we'd like to see playing up front. But, you know, with Xhaka kind of like coming back off an injury a little bit, like he's a little gimpy. We're not quite sure about Havertz. That would be a big blow for us, I think. I think it would. Ify says, move on from Gabriel Jesus. Some fans must be joking. If you go through a poor run of form, Arsenal fans want you gone. Like, that's so, like, you know, bad run of form, not really looking like yourself. I want that person gone, you know? And I think we're really short-sighted sometimes. Like, I think you need to, like, is it a persistent issue? Has it happened over multiple seasons? You know, things like that. I think those are things that you need to consider when we start talking about moving players on completely. Gabriel Jesus is just not a player that I necessarily feel like we absolutely have to move on from. So yeah, I think I'm not saying forever he has to stay either. Like, I'm just saying, like, saying that he's like, we got to move him on. It's kind of like silly at the stage, you know? Let's see. Clement says, season, as my brother can't stay healthy for the majority of the season. Yo-Yo says, you don't get rid of quality, you protect it and cherish it. Rather have a stacked squad of options than always having available average players. Yeah, and it's like, you know, I've heard people say we need to get rid of Trossard as well, and I just laugh because I'm just like, why? Like, why do we have to because we need somebody like Leao. I'm like, you can have somebody like Leao and have somebody like Trossard. You have to get rid of Nelson. Like, isn't it not obvious that Nelson is the one that doesn't offer as much as Trossard? If you get Trossard in and around the box, he scores goals. You don't get rid of goals and assists. You just don't. We don't score. We don't have enough clinical players in our team to move Trossard on right now. He's not hurting anybody. He's not hindering us. Like, there's clear and obvious players there where it's like, okay, we can move that player on. But having Gabriel Jesus and Trossard in your team, even if they're not starters, makes you much stronger. So until we got Mbappe in the team, until we got Messi in the team, I'm not trying to entertain any of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, let Gabriel Jesus cook. But if he does have an injury, that is, you know, would really suck, because Martinelli, I think, needs Jesus. And most players, by the way, I think that this is also like something that we never take into consideration. There are very few and far players in world football that don't need certain types of players around them to unlock their best qualities. Like it's almost like it's it's like a farce that, you know, well, you should just be able to perform no matter who's around you. Be for real. You've worked, you've been in the workforce before. You know that you have to have certain type of people around you to get the best out of your work, right? It's not just alone. Like you have to work as a team. And so Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli go together like peanut butter and jelly. Like they just do. It just works, you know? And I find that Martinelli, I think he struggles to get free and get the same type of service without him, you know? So we need him fit. We need him fit. Bro Pro says, Leandro clutch Trossard, you mean? Exactly. Dale says, imagine Jesus being our backup starter for striker and right wing instead of Nketiah and Nelson. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. See what I'm saying? Like, we don't have to move him on. We can upgrade the squad without him having to like pack his shit. I feel the same way about Zinchenko. I see people saying we have to move him on. I don't think we have to move Zinchenko on. We have to use him in ways that suit him. And he's such a good weapon to have. He's just not somebody that you can rely upon. Again, like we've made certain players in our team pillars. I think Yo-Yo said this too. Remind me, Yo-Yo, if you did say this, because I feel like you did, that we have certain players in our team that are pillars that at their previous teams were part of a puzzle or they were used in certain ways, but not all the time. Zinchenko cannot be the type of player that you rely upon. You know, you need him for certain circumstances, breaking down deep blocks when you have a lot of possession, but you need somebody else like Tommy, like Timber, you know, for different days, you know. Gabriel Jesus can be that for you as well, you know, but I don't think you have to get rid. You see what I'm saying? And so we're building a squad here, and Gabriel Jesus is important to that squad. I do not know why Nelson is not used more. If he is bad, why Arsenal extended his contract? I don't know. I don't know. I have no clue. Honestly, that is a mystery. That is a mystery to me. I don't really understand. I don't understand why Nelson was extended. I guess it's so that you don't lose them on a free because it doesn't look good to lose your academy kids for a free. But, you know, it's like, but you don't even use him ever, really. Like the perfect opportunity to use him was against Spurs, you know, against Spurs. We lost, who did we lose? Martinelli, I think. Yeah, we lost Martinelli to the hamstring injury. And so left wing was open. Left wing was open, and there's no Trossard either. And instead of just playing Nelson there and playing Jesus through the middle, Arteta brings Eddie in. It's crazy, you know? Like, it's crazy to me. So I don't know. Nelson extending and not being used. You know what it is? I can understand the extending part because we don't want to lose our academy players for free. But what I don't understand is him not being trusted, you know, because that has to come into consideration as well. Samuel says, Trossard, that must be a joke. Ain't no way Arsenal fans have said that. I've heard it, I've seen it, and they feel like because we need somebody like Leao, that Trossard has to go. And I'm just like, this all goes back to Arteta not using players properly, because if we use Trossard in a way like more central and in and around the box, we wouldn't feel like he's such a hindrance on the wing. You know, he's keeping us from having pace and power on the wing. We bought a player that we knew what he was. He's a central player. He plays center forward. He plays out the left wing, but more of a creative forward. Like, I actually blame Arteta for that. Sorry. Bro Pro says they certainly raise our technical floor. I agree. Ansa says, an idea, Jess, how about we try Zinchenko at left 8, given that Timber and Tommy will probably be preferred going forward. So let's talk about if Jesus, because like if Jesus has a hamstring injury, chances are he's not going to play against Sheffield and shouldn't, because if there's a chance that he can recover, we're probably going to want him for Newcastle, right? Because Newcastle is after that. So if we against Sheffield for center forward, what would you guys feel like what would be your preferred option there in the case that Gabriel Jesus is not fit enough, or we want to, wrap him up for Newcastle. I think Eddie's cameo yesterday was one of the worst he's had in his Arsenal career. And he's had some really poor ones, if I'm honest. So maybe Havertz, but people also want to see Havertz at right center mid, because people want Odegaard out the team as well. So, we're in a little bit of a pickle here, but a lot of people are saying Havertz. And I actually feel like I'd like to see Trossard there. I think for me, Trossard would be the better option than Havertz. I want to see Havertz at center forward, but equally, I want Arsenal to stick with their word of Havertz being a midfield player for Arsenal, and his role is linked to Reiss. I need to see some conviction behind that, because I feel like making him play center forward now is kind of letting them off the hook. So instead of giving those minutes to Havertz, who needs to be made into this midfielder with Reiss, maybe put Trossard there. Trossard is the only player for me that can replicate anything that Gabriel Jesus does up there. He's not as good, obviously, but there was a time last season where he stepped in for Gabriel Jesus after Nketiah went flat and was absolutely phenomenal in that position. He played like 5 games there, and he was really, really good. He got lots of assists and goals. And Arteta, like I think somebody was saying, Keenan was saying, we rushed Gabriel Jesus back. He could not wait to get Gabriel Jesus back. He did not have to take Trossard out of the team. And we were getting to the run-in, and instead of allowing Gabriel Jesus to fully heal, he snatched Trossard out of the team when he was in form. On reflection, that probably, to me, that wasn't the right call there. But people are saying Havertz. I actually think I'd play Trossard there. I think I'd probably play Trossard there. I think he has goals recently. Like Nketiah hasn't scored since Fulham, so I'd probably go with Trossard through the middle and allow Havertz to play right center mid for Odegaard. That's probably what I'd go with, if I'm honest. Let's see. Damon says Havertz has done well as an impact sub. He's slowly building his confidence. Bubba, what's wrong? Belly. Hugo says I would play Havertz because of Sheffield's height. Victor says Eddie gets the hump when he doesn't start, and it shows when he comes in as a sub. I wish West Ham will come in for him or anyone else. He's not really impactful off of the bench. I think that one of the best cameos that he had was against Fulham, but those are so few and far between. And that wasn't like he was getting 10 minutes off. He like Arteta took Trossard off and then brought Nketiah in at halftime. So it wasn't even like a little cameo on that day. What? Oh. It wasn't even like a little cameo. So, yeah, when he comes in for like the last 10, 15 minutes, he doesn't really do much, does he? Hugo says I would play Havertz because of Sheffield's high. I think I read that before. Come here. You're ruining the show. Get underneath the mic. Let's see. Aha says, oh, I thought you meant Trossard as right center mid. No, I would put Trossard at center forward, I think, because other than Gabriel Jesus, he's probably been the best that I've seen. Because I also am thinking about putting Havertz at right center mid to allow Odegaard a rest. Odegaard needs a rest. He needs to be rotated out. And so the best option at right center mid for me is the guy that you spent 65 million on that you said needs to be playing midfield with Reiss. I'm not letting them off the hook. They need to play him in midfield, and they need to make it work, because you've taken ESR and put him so down the pecking order. He could have played that position. You bought Vieira. He's not playing there either. So you need to play this Havertz guy, Travis says, I think Havertz or Odegaard in the right center mid role with Reiss and Partey in midfield will thrive. As long as Partey's fit, if Partey is fit, then I would play Havertz, Reiss, and Partey against Sheffield to see if that works. And then, like I said, Trossard through the center, so we don't kill Martinelli. Philip says Arteta clearly said at the start of the season that he wasn't sure on Havertz's best position. We would prefer to see Trossard in midfield and Havertz up top. I hear you. But they also made a big song and dance about it. Like, I remember reading it from Ornstein that, you know, the Havertz and Reiss, you know, combination was connected. And so even if you're saying that he wasn't sure about his best position, there was one position that we needed to fill more than any other position. It wasn't right center mid, and it wasn't center forward. It was left center mid, because we had a big gaping hole there because of no Granit Xhaka. So even though Arteta said we don't know what his best position is, we're just trying to try things out. If you put 2 and 2 together, if you lost Granit Xhaka and you were going to play Reiss in the 6, then what position did Havertz come into play? Probably the position that he played for 5 games until we decided to chuck that into the trash. Yo-Yo says, every week the Timber injury pains me more, because it's clear with the discovery of him playing off of the left that he was going to bail out our manager. I miss Timber every single day. Nuances of Faith says, buying a player for 65 million you don't know their best position is an unfunny joke. Aha says, Havertz came in as a second striker center forward against Chelsea and made an impact. In fact, 2 games in a row he came on and saved us, allow us to go. I wouldn't say he saved us, but he did well. You know, I think saying he saved us is a little, you know, Reiss actually for me saved us in that game, because he didn't give up and the manager had thrown the game. Allowed us to go long ball and help us score in both games and get the points. So a lot of people are saying Havertz. I would probably play him right center mid, knowing that I need Odegaard to take a rest. You know, but you know, if you guys want, you know, want Havertz up top, that's fair enough. You're gonna see Eddie. You know, you're gonna see Eddie. Anybody want Eddie? Any votes for Eddie? Any votes? Listening. Big Smoke says we bottled the left center mid position. I agree. You know, you can tell me all day long that it was always the plan for him to play center forward or, you know, whatever. But in reality, we lost a left center mid and we brought in Havertz to play that position. And when we saw it in real life, it didn't work. And so now we're playing him in other positions, trying to figure out a way to fit this guy in. I need to see us figure out a way to get the best out of Odegaard, play Reiss in the 6, and play Havertz in midfield, because that is what you said. That is what the plan was. You know, I'm not accepting these garbage minutes at center forward now. You know, it's convenient. I think it's very convenient. Figure something out. Here to There says, this Havertz love fest is overboard. Havertz has become a glorified workhorse, or Chris Wood. Let's slow down here. Yeah, I think Dan Potts said it best, is that he doesn't really think that he's played like horrendously or anything like that, but anything that Havertz does, even if it's pretty bare minimum requirement, you know, like a knockdown here, like what he did against Manchester City was not anything that you guys would give massive credit to anybody else for. You know what I mean? Like a knockdown, you know, what he did against, you know, Chelsea wasn't really anything that if anybody else did, you guys would be, you know, drooling over. If we're honest, I think there's a lot of like, we're overdoing it because we want the guy to work. I totally understand that. But the idea that like this guy is like changing, like I need to see so much more. I'll be so honest with you guys. Going back and watching this guy's comps, seeing what he was like at Leverkusen and even at times at Chelsea, I don't like, we have a long way to go to get anything remotely like usable out of this guy. Like it's so hard, because it's like when you say that somebody's playing well, we know what that looks like. He's basically doing like some good knockdowns, you know, a couple of little 1-2s here and there, but he's not really doing anything. You know what I mean? Like it's so hard to describe. Like I'm not saying he's just out there not touching the ball, but the credit that he's getting for like bare minimum things for me is like a little much. Because I know this player can do a lot more, and I really need Arteta to get so much more out of this player for 65 million. And maybe it'll take time. I accept that it'll probably take time, you know, but go watch some of the comps that he has, not even just at Leverkusen, but also at Chelsea, because he didn't really fall off at Chelsea until like the very end, like where he was really poor, like what we're seeing now. But I really need you guys to go back and watch that and tell me that we're not gassing it a little bit. Like Arteta really needs to figure out a way to get so much more from this player. You know, this is not enough. And it needs to be in midfield for me because that's what they told me he was there to do. You know, if we spent 65 million on a center forward option when there were so many left center mids available and also strikers available, you could have got Hoyland. There's, you know what I mean? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So I'm not letting it go yet, you know, but I do understand that it may take time. So, but I want to see effort put into getting this guy back on track, you know. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Ansa says people do that to counter the constant backlash he gets after every single game. I understand that, but I think that's why it's important to be balanced on both sides. It kind of annoys me that we have to be so over the top. Like that's like when I'm saying Raya's not, you know, really played that well. Like I think he's been okay. You know, I don't think he's been spectacular, and I also don't think he's been horrendous. I think he's just been okay. And I think there's people on both sides kind of going too far. You know, I think people are going too far on both sides. So I think if you just have balance from the beginning and you don't overdo it or underdo it, we can just talk about the player in reality, you know? It's like when I say that Thomas Partey is a elite when he's on point, but when he's injured or unavailable, it's really frustrating. All people hear is you hate Thomas Partey. That's not what I'm saying. So then what they do is they overdo it and pretend like this guy has been available for us. Do you know what I mean? And so Havertz hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been anywhere near like anything that I would be happy about. Like at this point, I think the 65 million looks like a waste, you know? But he hasn't been horrendous, but he also hasn't been good. You know, he's just been he's whelmed. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I don't know how to say it without being like incredibly harsh, you know, because I know people are like, you know, we have to make this guy work, but I need him to make himself work too. You know, I need to see something, you know, and I haven't really seen anything. When you watch him at Leverkusen, we're getting like 10% out of this player so far. It's not enough, you know? So yeah, that's all I'm saying. Here to there says, Jess, you really must want to see Arteta burn by demanding we make Havertz work in midfield. I think it's best Arteta stops digging that grave deeper, but it's a tough situation. I just want to see some conviction, you know, in what you said, you know, like, or what was reported out there, you know, and like for people saying like, well, Ornstein only puts out information that Arsenal wants people to know. Well, then Arsenal wanted us to know that, you know, we wanted him to play in midfield next to Declan Rice. You know, that's what they said. You know, and Arteta, we know when he speaks to the media, he speaks in tongues. You know, so him saying that, I don't know what his best position is, we're just going to see, you know, I don't know. Like, I just feel like if you really believe that you're bringing this guy in for midfield and you believe that you could turn him into the Leverkusen Kai, he'd be playing there every single week. It frustrates me that he's not playing there anymore, not consistently. And even though, like, if I'm picking my best 11, he's not in it. When I pick my best 11, he's not in it. I don't think he's in anybody's. You know what I mean? But I would at least want to see the manager say, you know what, I'm going to keep playing this guy in this position because I know I can get more out of him. I know I can make it work. The fact that we ditched it so early is alarming to me because why? There were so many left center mids out there that you could have got. You know, I'm really going to need you to come different with that. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough, you know, but Declan is such a good player that I feel like we're inevitably going to kill him. You know, the amount of work that he's doing in midfield, I think he's being asked to do so much. I think he's playing so well, but we know what happens with players like this. I don't even need to tell you, you know, I don't even need to tell you, you know, he's doing a lot of work and, you know, he's doing really well at it, but we need to figure out a way to get balance back in the midfield. So Odegaard is usable as well. Like we're getting the most out of Odegaard as well. We're not getting anything out of one of our best players. That's really alarming to me. But also we have Reiss doing a lot and the other person in midfield doesn't seem to be, we're not getting the most out of the midfield right now. So we need to figure out what's the best partner from an internal situation from now until January. And if Thomas Partey can't stay fit and Kai Havertz still gets these center forward minutes, then we definitely need to get somebody in the midfield, because he's not going to last all season playing like this. This is Arsenal. It's not like, I know he's like Superman, but he's doing a lot, and I love it, but we need to get a balanced midfield in there as soon as possible. Snake Eyes, sorry. Thank you so much for your super chat. Says, would you have still let Xhaka go? And who do you think we need to get in Jan if Partey leaves? We are a Reiss injury away from a midfield crisis. That's exactly pretty much what I was saying, but I didn't even want to say it, but the thing is Xhaka wanted to leave, and he said so in an interview. And I think Arsenal had a little deal with him that if he ever wanted to go, they would allow him to, because he stayed longer to help us out more than anything. Like, I think he did it for the manager because he wanted to leave more than once, and he stayed for Arteta more than once, So I think at this stage they wanted to give him what he wanted, which was an exit. And so it wasn't so much that I think Arsenal kicked him to the curb. I think that's not the way that it went. I think if Arteta could have kept Xhaka for the rest of his life, he would have. You know what I mean? So especially after the season that he just had. So I would have preferred him to stay. But I also still would have wanted to see somebody else come in, because I just feel like we would have needed to move away from Xhaka at some point. But having him as a midfield option would have been very useful, Then we wouldn't have to move Reiss to left center mid. He could just stay where he's at, but if in January, if Partey were to go, the person that like I've been talking about is Youssouf Fofana, just because like he can play DM, double pivot, number 8. He absolutely bossed it at the Emirates. I was there at the game in preseason, and he was the best player on the pitch by a country mile. He's just the type of profile that we just don't have. Like, if you wanted to play up against a combative midfield, if you have him and Reiss in your team, you're winning every single battle. And to have only one midfielder available to you with legs and athleticism and the ability to intercept and win the ball, I think is there's, you need another player to do that. So no, he's not necessarily going to score a bunch of goals, because I know some people want another midfielder that's going to give you goals, but I just think the ability to control the midfield is something that's eluding us, not because we don't have good ball players, but because we can't win the midfield battle against the better teams, So think about the midfield that Chelsea put out there against us. It was Gallagher, Caicedo, and Enzo. They had 2 ball winner interceptors, whatever, and then they had 1 ball player. I think it'd be useful for Arsenal to have the ability to put Jorginho out there with a Fofana and a Reiss and just say, you know what, y'all win the ball. Jorginho dictates from deep, go, Jesus drops into the 10 role. Make sure when you get the ball, kick it to Martinelli, give it to Jesus, let him connect with Martinelli. We don't ever have the option to put 2 ball winners in ever, because we never have more than one. All last season we only had Partey. So yeah, I would go for Fofana. He only has 1 year left on his deal. So if he doesn't leave in January, he's going to go for free. And he's a French international. He's 24 and he's really good. And I prefer to get somebody like that than some overrated guy from the Premier League. That's who I'd go for. Nuances of Fate says, I genuinely hope he comes good, but I can't see it. Hopefully I eat my words. I want to eat my words. It's not even like, I don't know if I feel like 100% Kai Havertz is going to flop. I feel like I just want to see Arsenal feel like they have conviction in their ideas. That makes me feel like it's already flopped. I don't like it. I don't like that feeling. Let's see. Chosen One says, Jess, I think Odie and Jesus could rest in the next 2 fixtures before Newcastle, but I kind of want a strong lineup again against West Ham, because they're good, and the EFL Cup is so winnable without Man City in it anymore. And yeah, they could. Jesus and Odegaard could sit out for West Ham and Sheffield, but I agree with you that if we want to beat West Ham, we're going to have to put out a pretty strong lineup, because the lineup that went out against Brentford away is not going to beat West Ham away. They're not. We won 1-0 and we barely got through that game. We did well in the first half, but we really fell away. West Ham are going to want to put a statement out there. You know, it's the Declan Rice derby. I expect them to want to beat us bad. So they're going to put out a strong lineup. So we're not going to be able to rest everybody. You know, but maybe Odegaard is somebody that doesn't have to play. I don't know. It's a tough one. It depends on how important you guys think the Carabao Cup is. I think we need to stay in it as long as possible. You know, I wouldn't put out a lineup that just completely says, I don't care about this. Like, I'm not putting out the kids. But I think that's a really good game for maybe one midfield change. You know, whoever you feel like it is, whoever's like, I still think you have to play, you know, one of your better DMs, you know. And you could have Tommy in there. You can have, you know, I don't know. Do you guys feel comfortable with Kiwior? I'm not sure. I probably would play him in that game. You could have Ramsdale in if you want. And then you can have maybe one change up top. You know, maybe Kai Havertz in at center forward if you want. Trossard could play in that game. He's fit now. So I think some rotation. But if you want to beat West Ham, you're going to have to come with something a little bit stronger than what you had against Brentford. But maybe Odegaard can rest, but I'm not sure. Odegaard and Jesus, that's taking away a lot of creativity. And I know people are like, Odegaard's not creative, but he's going through a poor run of form. That's all it really is. Let's see. Recklin says, I'd make more changes against Sheffield and go a bit stronger against West Ham. Absolutely. Like, Sheffield at home is a much easier. It's not obviously it's not like just a gimme, but it's a much easier proposition than West Ham away from home. So if you want to make big changes, you're going to do it against Sheffield. You know, but what are those changes? You know, what are those changes? It's, you know, Arteta needs to get this right. This is, again, like, we've gotten through, I think, like the more difficult part of this, you know, kind of like period where it's like we had Manchester City, we had a little break, we had some injuries, we got some players back. Then we played against Chelsea, and we played against Sevilla away. Now we have a home game. Then, you know, we you know, I think we've kind of gotten through the more difficult part. I think Arteta has managed it pretty well. Well, we'll see. And the big one is whether or not Partey is going to be fit. You know, I think if Partey is fit, it solves a lot of our problems. You know, going into the game against West Ham, the game against Newcastle, Partey being fit changes that for us. It makes us, it solves the problem, you know, of midfield. You're just going to go, even though I don't think that it's a long-term fix with Partey and Reiss and Odegaard, it's something that can at least get us to January. It's something that could at least maybe be something that we use in the big games, you know. So Partey being fit is so important. But, you know, against Sheffield, we should be able to field like Jorginho, you know, I don't know, Jorginho, Reiss and Vieira, Jorginho, Reiss and Havertz, something, you know, Trossard up top, you know, whatever, you know, maybe you switch Trossard and Kai Havertz something, you know, and win that game. You should be. Would you guys play Tommy or no? Or would you bring Zinchenko back in for Sheffield, knowing that you're probably going to need Tommy against West Ham and Newcastle? Those are both really tough away games with bigger sides that win their headers, win their duels. You know, I'm looking at West Ham and Newcastle as Tommy games. But would you let Zinchenko play against Sheffield, or do you like not necessarily like it's not dropping Tommy, but understanding that Sheffield will probably play in a way that means that Arsenal are going to need Zinchenko on the ball? What do you guys think? Yo-Yo says Sheffield are cannon fodder. I want to see him use the squad. I hear ya. Hugo says start Zinni this weekend. Chosen One says, Jess, would you play Saka and Gabby against West Ham? Yeah, I would. West Ham are no joke, you know, and also after Newcastle, we have Burnley at home. So there's 2 games here in Sheffield and Burnley on either side of West Ham and Newcastle. So Saka and Martinelli have to play against West Ham and Newcastle, unless you don't care about the Carabao Cup. I do, you know, so I would play them. And, you know, you could rest them, or at least you could rest Saka against Sheffield. You could rest both of them against Burnley if you wanted to, you know, but also Arteta has to figure out whether or not he trusts Reiss Nelson or not, because Reiss Nelson should be playing against Sheffield and Burnley at home. He should be starting against both of them, you know? So let's see what he does. Aha says Partey, Reiss, Havertz. Partey, Reiss, and Havertz. Martinelli, Trossard, Xhaka on Saturday. Yeah, that's what I do. That's exactly what I do. Providing that Partey is fit, that's what I'd go with. If Partey's not fit, I'd go with Jorginho. But yeah, that's the midfield. That's the up front that I would go with on Saturday. The only other change I maybe would make is Nelson in Saka's position, because Nelson should be starting these games, but knowing that Arteta is not going to do anything, you know, and not change it, it's going to be Saka. And Zinchenko back at left back and use Tommy for the next 2 games. Exactly. That's exactly what I do. Because again, we have to manage players. Like Zinchenko is rested halftime against Chelsea, and also he didn't play against Sevilla, so he should be fresh for Sheffield, so that's probably what I'd go with. And if no Partey, then Zinchenko left center mid. Zinchenko left center mid, I don't know if it's ever going to happen, to be honest. And then maybe even Kiwior starting. Like, should Kiwior maybe come in against Sheffield? What do you guys think? Because he's not getting enough minutes for me, and it's irritating me now, because I don't think that he's a bad player. I just think Arteta doesn't trust him. And I'm like, this is your guy. You said that he's going to change the way that we're playing. He can't do that from the bench. Be nice to give Gabriel a little bit of a rest. It won't kill us, So okay. We're going to go against Sheffield. Because Ramsdale is going to play against West Ham, I feel. So he could play. I don't care. Raya or Ramsdale against Sheffield. I don't care. Either one of them. White, Saliba, Kiwior, Zinchenko. Partey, provided he's fit. Reiss and Havertz. Martinelli, Trossard, Reiss. That's what I do. That's what I would do. That's it. That's what I would do. Kiwior needs some minutes. Does he exist? Michael, thank you so much for your super chat. Says Nketiah is just Sambi Lakanga that plays up. Why did that make me die? I'm sorry. I would like, if you guys were watching the channel when Sambi was playing real minutes for Arsenal, I hated going in on him, but man, he used to just kill me. Like, he never ran fast. Like, he ran with his knees, like, hitting his chest. I started calling him Bambi. I was like, I cannot do it. I would like Arteta to give Kai a run up front until January. The layoff he did against City, Nketiah and Jesus would have tried to shoot. I think that's unfair on Jesus, but Nketiah definitely would have tried to shoot. But it's just a layoff. Like, it's just a layoff, but fair enough. I hear you. If Kai played up front, it wouldn't kill me. I would still be just writing him a little notebook like, Arteta, Arsenal, they said that they were going to play this man in midfield. Now they're trying to, pull a fast one on me and stick him up top and make me forget. I ain't forgot, so he can play up front. It just puts a big red flag on our recruitment, Keenan says we got to give Nelson a run. He was improving so much. He has potential to be close to Saka in terms of quality. I don't know about all that. But what I will say is that, like, you have to capitalize on players when they're in form. And I think Arteta doing that with Tommy kind of validated that, that players, he could have played Zinchenko. He could have done it, but he chose not to. He chose to go with the right player, and not just because he's the better choice, tactically, but also because he's in form. Tommy's in really good form right now. Every single cameo after cameo, good. He got an opportunity and he took it. And I feel like more players would do that if they weren't dropped the first minute that the starter was available. He did that with Trossard. He was the player that was informed the most coming into the season. He was, and I know that Martinelli is the best. He's better than Trossard in that position, but Martinelli didn't even really have like a consistent preseason. He could have started with Trossard. Trossard was in form, just like Trossard was in form when he dropped him at the end of last season. And then when he needed him, he had a bad first half and then he yanked him out, So for me, it's like you have to capitalize on players' form. Reiss Nelson is somebody that consistently comes in and gives you decent minutes. And Saka is on one leg. Play him. Play him against Sheffield. Play him against Sheffield. Do it. Play him against Sheffield. If you give him more than 5 minutes here and there, he'll probably thank you for it with a goal or something, you know? Clement says Kiwior starting against Sheffield makes sense also. I think he should start him. Like, give him a chance, you know? Just try it. It won't kill you, I don't think. Chosen One says, hopefully players like Xhaka and Reiss take the next international break off, considering England have qualified. So what's the point of them playing in these 2 qualifiers? Look, you ain't never lied. You know, you ain't never lied. I think you're making a really good point there. But when we get there, we'll see what they do, because it kind of feels like no matter what, they're going. You know what I mean? Xhaka even went to this last international break and went home after. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he went and then went back home. Like, why did you even have to go? You know, why? Why'd you even have to go? Philip says, no way are we starting Partey and Reiss versus Sheffield. Well, I think if you want Partey to play against Newcastle or West Ham, you need to give him minutes. You know, and then also you need to figure out some sort of, right now we have no, what's the word? You have no, there's no vibe or connection in midfield. So I feel like it's not always just about, you know, oh, well, it's really low level opposition, so we shouldn't start them. Partey needs minutes. He hasn't played at all this season, barely. He's been out since August 26th. So if you want him to play against, you know, West Ham or Newcastle, he's going to have to start building up his fitness so that he can play 90 minutes. Him and Reiss need to build some sort of connection. If this is the midfield that we want to go with, they need to learn how to play with each other. They can start doing that even without Odegaard. Then when you put Odegaard back in, then you have Reiss and Partey. Like, at this stage, like, our midfielders, even though like we want to rest them, they need to build some sort of like connection. They don't have any. There's no connection between Reiss and Odegaard. There's none, you know, so you got to give play, even if in these lower level games, and it could give them confidence too. If they start playing well against lower level opposition together, it'll give them confidence. Like, I genuinely feel like we forget that Odegaard, Partey, and Xhaka have played together consistently. They played together for 2 seasons. And that combination, like, it was not perfect when we first put it together. I think it kind of, we could see that the balance was there, but they still needed to work through some of the stuff. And then the second season, it was like, I know that Sheffield is like lower level opposition, but if Partey is fit, he needs to start that game, start building his fitness. And if we're going to start doing Reiss and Partey and Odegaard, these players need to start building some sort of relationship, because right now, child, they look like they had never seen each other before. That it's real. We're winning despite our midfield, not because of it at this stage. So I'd want Partey to start. He doesn't have to play every single minute, but Partey and Reiss need to start getting some time together if that's something that we feel like we want to utilize. World Boss says, hey, Jess, I think players are not helping, making it hard for Mikel. Sheffield is a chance for bench player to step up. Here to There says Kiwior 100% needs to play. He's a good player. Honestly, I think he would fit the Pep's rotation. Kiwior is that good of an athlete and solid on the ball. Yeah, like, come on, just put him in. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we just make things much harder than they need to be. I know that Gabriel and Saliba are best, like our number one, but we're at home. It's a safe place most of the time. You'll have the rest of the, you know, defense. You have, if you play Zinchenko or Tommy, he's safe. You know, against Sheffield, he's safe. I mean, because, you know, it's not like playing against, like, you know, Zinchenko knows what he's doing. He's experienced. Tommy's really good. He's experienced. You'll have Saliba on the other side of you, and you'll have, like, White is on the other side. Hopefully you'll have Reiss or somebody in front of you. So I think he'll be fine. I think, you know, I think we think these players are not any good because Arteta doesn't play them. But then I watch them play for their international team, and I'm like, why is this boy not playing? Manny says Kiwior looked really good in preseason. And there were some games during preseason he did not play at all. You know, that was a red flag to me. I was like, it's preseason. He ain't getting no minutes. None. You know, I don't think he played at all against Barcelona or United. He didn't start playing again until we got back to the UK. Very strange. Very strange. Very strange. Afsar says Jorginho puts me to sleep fast. Actually, on rewatch, Jorginho was fine. The crazy thing about Jorginho is what he's good at is what he's doing for us. You know, he's keeping possession, a metronome, you know, controlling the tempo. That's exactly what Jorginho did yesterday. It's not exciting because he's not dropping the shoulder and eluding pressure like Thomas Partey, and he's not bursting through the midfield like Reiss, but he did exactly probably what he was being asked to do, which is boring. Keeping possession and controlling the tempo is boring, you know? So Jorginho, I guess if he's putting you to sleep, he's doing exactly what he's, what he's supposed to be doing or what we know he's good at. It's crazy. So yeah. Clement says he'd play Raya, White, Kiwior, Saliba, Zinchenko, Reiss, Partey, Havertz, Nelson, Martinelli, and Jesus. If Jesus is fit, I'd probably play Jesus, But if he needs to be wrapped up a little bit and on ice, then yeah, you play somebody else there. But Nelson should start. Afsar says, what about Fabio Vieira not even in the squad? He doesn't even exist anymore. He doesn't exist. Does Vieira exist? No. Yeah. Does Vieira exist anymore? Was he a mirage, you guys? Did we make him up? I don't know, because he didn't make the Chelsea squad. So I don't know what's going on. He was knocking on the door for a starting position, and this is what happened to him last season. He was on the bench yesterday. I don't know if he's dealing with a knock, because when he came off at halftime, the funny thing is every time somebody comes off at halftime, they say it's because of a knock. Vieira came off at halftime against Spurs. They said it was a knock. Trossard came off against Lens. No, was it Lens? Who did Trossard? No, Man City. They said it was a knock. Zinchenko came off at halftime for Tommy against Chelsea. It was a knock. I only think one of those was actually really a knock. I think two of them got hooked. But Vieira, he was knocking on the door for a starting position. He was kind of in form. You got to play him through the difficult times. I feel like we're kind of not willing to play them, even though they're having inconsistent performances. You have to keep playing him. Maybe he did have a knock, but he didn't even make the squad against Chelsea, which was kind of because really the only difference between the squad against Chelsea and the squad yesterday was no Thomas Partey. So if Thomas Partey was able to be there, who would have dropped? Hopefully it would have been Cedric. I don't know, so I don't know. Maybe he did have a knock, but as far as I'm concerned, Vieira is a mirage, and he's never been here, and we never seen him before. We imagined this man. We imagined him because he just kind of disappeared, and that's what happened last season. He started a couple of games, played well, got dropped, then played some games, didn't go as well, got dropped, and we just never saw the man again. So he's a mirage, Vieira, we imagined him. So there you go. DJ Polar says, less we talk about Jorginho, the better the performance is. Good point. Ocampo says, we need to see Fabio Vieira play. Why waste 35 million? We got a lot of money wasting around. There's some money there. And I'm like, okay, you got Vieira for 35 million. You got Kai for 65 million. That's a lot of money. We got to make that. We got to make that shake. We got to make that work out for us. Two players that I think Fabio Vieira, when you watch him at Porto and you see the best of him at Arsenal, you just understand the player is a number 10. He can play across the front three, but it's still as a creative midfielder. So even if he's playing off of the wing, he's dropping in as a creative player, getting crosses in, finding through balls, things like that. And so this is not a player for me that is going to thrive in a 4-3-3. I think you have to have two really foundational midfielders in there next to him and allow him to exist within the pockets, similar to ESR as well. I think ESR is going to suffer in a 4-3-3 with us, but if you play him as just a true number 10, he'll thrive, or off of the wings as a creative forward, which he did for us for 2 years. So, Vieira for me is another one that falls into the category of the manager's not really using them in the best way. And so when he doesn't do what Xhaka is doing, we're like, why can't you be more like Xhaka? Because he's nothing like Xhaka. He's not going to be able to do those things. Vieira is really good on the edges of the box, finding little through balls, making runs, scoring goals, getting assists. He is a final third player. That's what he is. So playing him in the 8 role on the left-hand side where you have to be good off the ball, it's not going to work for him. You can play him on the right, but right now, all 3 of our number 10s, or number 8s, all 4 of them, if we wanted them to play, we prefer them on the right side rather than the left. We have not built the midfield properly. But Vieira for me is a player that's underutilized, that probably is not a player that I think people would really love to see for 90 minutes every single game, but definitely can make it shake. If we wanted to take Odegaard off early, we could put in Vieira in some games, like when we're winning and stuff like that, and maybe play him as a true number 10. I really do like Vieira. You guys know I back him, but as long as the manager continues to play him in ways that don't necessarily suit him, you're not going to get that much out of him. Here to there says, what's going on with Fabio? He shows signs of life and then he gets totally thrown off the reservation. It's strange. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Boy says last season, one thing that we did really well was transition our possession triangles. We frankly don't have the midfield smart enough and athletic enough for the same right now. Damn, you calling them dumb? Boy called them dumb. No, I'm just joking. But I think we also don't take into consideration that Thomas Partey and Xhaka were both like 30. So they've been around the block for a long time. They have like 5 more years under their belt than the players that were playing there now. Jorginho is older, but when you try to play a midfield of, Reiss and Havertz and Odegaard, you've lost so much experience. And so especially, yeah, it's one of those. Xhaka, maybe he was underrated last season. And we did not take into, maybe I didn't appreciate what he was doing as much as like other people did, because I know some people from like day one were like, you guys just don't understand what Xhaka does for you. I think I was one of those people. I do. I think I'm one of those people that didn't really appreciate what Granit Xhaka did. But also what I'll say is I also don't think it would be that big of an issue had we had recruited properly a player that can do what Xhaka was doing. There was tons of them on the market. So I think we love Xhaka more because we didn't recruit properly, not because we couldn't have upgraded upon him seamlessly in the market with everybody that was available. Samuel says, we get Tony and Pedro in January and we win the league. I wish we would do that, but we have to find a midfield solution no matter what you do. Even if you have Tony and Neto in your team, if our midfield is creating and operating the way it is now, those players aren't going to do anything for us. Like, my main concern right now is figuring out the midfield, and then we figure out the rest, because I think we'll score more goals naturally if we just figure out the balance there. Yo-Yo says that was truly Xhaka's saving grace despite his limitations. He always made selfless runs and knew when to draw fouls and slow down the game. And that's one thing that I did not like about seeing Havertz play in that left center mid is neither one of them, right? Like, Havertz can do it, but he's lost it because he is low on confidence. But neither one of them are going to get the ball and dribble away from you. So if you press them, you have 3 guys around them and try to take the ball away from them, you got to get your body in between the ball and the players and protect it. Xhaka was really good at putting putting himself between the ball and the player, and like you said, drawing fouls. And he knew, like you guys are saying, like he knew when to get rid of it, when to keep it, when to be calm, when to fall on top of the ball, all those types of things. Havertz was just over there losing the ball and stuff like that, and not knowing how to draw the fouls and stuff like that. So we've lost a lot of experience. And I don't want to say footballing IQ, but maybe we have in midfield. And I think Declan definitely has a lot of those qualities, but he can't do it on his own. Xhaka and Partey were doing the business. That was a lot of experience. And 2 years of playing together, maybe even 3. Was it 3? Isn't it 3? Did they play together for 3 years, y'all? Or was it 2? Well, I think the first year Thomas was out a lot, so we maybe don't count it, but 2 full seasons together. Blaze says, yes, Jess, Xhaka had good footballing IQ. He did. Samuel says, nothing is wrong with our midfield, Jess. Everything is wrong with it. Here to there says, here's the issue. Arteta really tried Kai as a shadow striker at first as primarily a final action player. Arteta basically sacrificed Martinelli, but he saw Kai had no confidence and had to abort. We definitely aborted that shit. We said, you know what, that's not going to work. But he's got to figure out something, because we are not Manchester City. We can't just allow 65 million pound players to just be on the bench. Like, he has to figure out a way to get the most. He's not getting the most out of certain players. It's frustrating, especially in the final third. So yeah, Artie says, funny enough, in 10 years, Arsenal fans could say we never replaced Xhaka like we did the real Vieira. I know this may be like a bold thing to say, but in terms of presence, I think Reiss might end up being a Vieira. Now, Vieira was he was different than Reiss. So I'm not saying that they play exactly the same. I think a lot of us felt like when Thomas Partey came to the team that he would be the Vieira replacement that we always wanted. And for a lot of the time when he was fit and available, he felt like that. But the thing that Thomas did not have that Reiss has in abundance is presence and determination and character. And those are the things that you really miss from Vieira. Because people always talk about how good of a footballer he was. Vieira was an outstanding footballer with tons of ability going backwards and forwards. He was like box to box. Back in the day, you only had 2 midfielders, so both of them had to do everything. They had to get up, they had to get back, you know? And so he had that about him, but he had the character and the presence. And I think this may be an early shout and something that people will be like, you can't say that. But I'm just going to say it. I think Reiss will end up being the Vieira replacement that we always wanted. It's a shame it had to be this long and cost this much, but I just feel like I'm watching that type of player in our team, not necessarily from a playing style perspective, but a presence and, character. And that's really what you miss from Vieira more than anything. We've had loads of talented midfielders in our day, loads of technical, solid midfielders that, like, on their day they could play you off the park, but we really just did not have the character and the presence. So I actually think Reiss will be the replacement for Vieira if he continues on the way that he is now. In terms of replacing Xhaka, maybe we have to wait 20 years to replace him as well, because people are missing the hell out of him. It's crazy. Travis says, I feel like we're going to have a hard time replacing Partey's on the ball movement and ability to dribble out of trouble. What are we doing? What's happening? Yeah, probably, no, if we go out into the market and buy a proper left center mid, we won't. There's tons of players out there that we missed out on in the summer, and there's some that are still there that have the ability to progress the ball with their dribbling, kind of like what Timber was meant to do for us. I think Timber had a lot of those qualities in terms of being able to, like, evade pressure, dip the shoulder, get away in tight quarters. There are players like that on the market. We just need to go get them. We miss a lot of what Thomas Partey gave us because obviously, like, he gave us something important on the ball with, like you guys are saying, evading the pressure and stuff and the punchy balls in between the lines. But you can find that on the market. He's a special player, but I love me some Reiss. Okay. Here to there says, spot on. Reiss just has it. Declan is a pure winner and a competitor. Yeah, and we need to find Reiss the perfect partner. Now, see, we're already doing an hour and 14 minutes. This was only supposed to be an hour, but who cares? We ain't got nothing else to talk about. And these are my favorite types of shows where we just sit around and talk. If this girl would just stop doing what she's doing. She just wants me to stop this stream so bad. Stand up over here. If you guys had to go out in the market and find Declan Rice's perfect like partner, who would it be? If you had to go out in the market, if there's anybody in world football, not anybody, somebody realistic, like, don't come out here talking crazy to me, but somebody that you genuinely think we could get that you think would be Rice's perfect partner, let me know. Because I don't think they exist in our team. I think we have internal solutions that could make us better. But when we talk about his perfect partner, that player doesn't exist within our team. Who do you guys think it is on the market? You getting them in your? Why are you running the show? Oh my goodness. She's so cute. Okay. Blaze says, just be careful. You will offend a lot of fanboys in the chat with the statement about Reiss and Vieira. Vieira is like my favorite Arsenal player of all time. So I don't say that lightly. You know, I don't say it like it would take a lot to do anything like Vieira. You know, it's not easy. I don't say it easily, you know. So I am the fanboy, and I think it's true. You know, it's the character and the presence that we really miss from Vieira. We've had tons of really technical, really good midfielders. I mean, look at Thomas. You know, Thomas is a incredible technical footballer, you know, but what we really miss is that character and presence. MM says, all I will say, how do you go from Caicedo to Gundogan to Fofana and end up with Havertz at 8? I don't know. Ask Arteta. DJ Polar says Bella and Arsenal collab. Bella is just like not having it, y'all. She's sitting over here looking at me like, can you please stop talking to these people? I need attention. World says Timber. World Boss says Timber. Here to there says Nicolo Barella. That's the guy. Clement says, I have 2 options to be Rice's partner, Fofana and Barella. A lot of people like Barella. DJ Polar says, Chumeni. We're never getting Chumeni. Keenan says, Douglas Luiz, Jess. He is the Reiss of left center mid. He is unassuming like Xhaka did, but he ticks all the boxes. I need more than a purple patch, okay? The Douglas Luiz thing, I don't know what it is. It may end up being one of those where, you know, there are players that we've bought over the last couple of years that when we was first mentioned, I was like, you know, and he's one of them where I'm going, But if we did get him and he was much better than what I ever imagined, then fair enough, you know. But right now, I don't know, Keenan. I think there's other players we could get. CU says Valverde, but realistically, Mikel Moreno. I think we could get him. I'll give you guys my two in a second. I want to see what you guys have to say. Mark says, Partey has reported in the Metro. Early suggestions are that the 30-year-old has picked up a fresh thigh injury, which was sustained during Monday's session. Child, if I speak. Travis says, if Reiss plays 6, Yusuf Fofana looks good and gettable. Kafunso says, Vieira still needs a couple seasons to really develop his potential. I agree. John Donut says, oh, you said realistic? Yeah. I mean, because if we're saying unrealistic stuff, we can go real crazy, all right? Michael says, Frankie de Jong. A lot of people like him. Boy says, perfect partner for Reiss would be Xavi Simons, where there were options before this last summer played out. Best bet for me right now is Nicholas Seiwald at Leipzig. All right. That's we all kind of like have the same ones, but that's a different one. I've never really heard that one before. Yo-Yo says Reiss is a 6, Odie is a 10, so we need an 8. Someone who can progress the ball through movement as well as their feet, light-footed and press-resistant, combative, robust, not short. To know who that is, Yo-Yo does not want anybody short, okay? Not here for anybody short. I love it. Philip says Zubamendi. Recklin says Zubamendi. Manny says Turam. Keenan says, Jess, before you speak, 9 times out of 10, Fofana will come to the Prem and end up worse than Luiz. I actually think midfielders like DMs and center backs are actually good to get from the French league. You know, attackers and stuff like that. I don't want that. But midfielders, DMs, types, I think they're fine coming to the Premier League. But DJ Polar says we need a technical athlete. So here you go. Like, here's my thoughts. Okay. So I think we need 2 midfielders. That's if we wanted to rebuild our midfield and undo the tragic shit that we did this summer. You know, we need to bring in 2 midfielders because personally, I think Jorginho, Thomas Partey, and El Neni all need to be moved on. Not because they don't have quality, but because them boys are old and they're not offering us enough. You know, one is never available. Jorginho, you know, you need somebody like a Jorginho with legs to really get the most out of that in the Premier League. And El Neni is El Neni, you know? So I think you need a number 8 that's more box to box, that's kind of in a Caicedo mold. Because Caicedo's not a number 6. He never was. People are saying that he's a number 6. He's not. He's an 8. But he's not the type of 8 that's going to he's not a Soboslai. There's so many different types of number 8s. I don't think they're all the same. I think you have ones that are more 6/8s. You have some that are more 10/8s. Like 10/8s for me would be like Soboslai. You know, a 6/8 is more like Fofana. You know, so for me, I would love Fofana. You guys know that. If I had to pick somebody that could play with Reiss, you know, and would give us more of that Caicedo feel of like you could go away to the big teams and like really F them up, you know, win the ball back and just be super combative. Fofana. Yeah, you got that. Progressive carries, interceptions, you know, when we're talking about not getting bullied, we're not getting bullied. You know, what you saw when we played against Chelsea in midfield, you're not seeing that with Fofana because you got Reiss, you got Fofana, you got somebody else, you're bullying them, you know. But we also need somebody like Zubimendi. You know, I think we need somebody that could also play with Reiss, that could be the brain, you know, like what we're trying to do with Jorginho, but Jorginho doesn't have the legs. Ciao, Bella. So we need somebody like Zubimendi as well, you know. So I think it's a 2 midfield job, you know, where you need more than one midfielder to truly get the most out of what we have. In Odegaard and Reiss, and then they have to figure out what they're going to do with the number 10s. You know, we got Kai that's kind of there. You have Odegaard, you have Vieira, and you have ESR. You need to figure that out. But for me, bring in Fofana and also bring in Zubimendi to replace what Jorginho gives you, but also is going to give you, because you have to have somebody in there that has the brains, and you need to be able to play different formations as well. Like I'd love to be able to play 4-2-3-1, you know. So for me, it's either in different circumstances, Fofana or Zubimendi, but I don't know why you'd buy, you know, Douglas Luiz if Zubimendi's right there. You know, I don't know. Is Douglas Luiz even making the Brazilian national team? Because last time I checked, Andre is the heir to Casemiro's throne. So what are we talking about? Was it Douglas Luiz? No, I'm just doing that for Keenan's sake. But if we got in Douglas Luiz, I would hope that he's more of a level raiser than a ceiling, or a ceiling raiser than like a floor keeper at the same. Bella, I'm not playing with you now. Come on now. I'm trying to finish up this stream. Let's see. Keenan says, Jess, I need you to watch Aston Villa play a full 90 and scout Douglas Luiz, how he takes up space, cuts off runners in midfield, carries the ball into attack, links the entire midfield. Fair enough. Yo-Yo says double pivot 8 or left-sided 3. Double pivot 8 or a right-sided midfield 3-8. I like a double pivot 8 most of the time. I like a 4-2-3-1. So most of the things that I think of are like, how can we get 2 DMs in there that do different things and then a number 10? I feel like it's just an oldie but goodie. It's a safe bet. I think the 4-3-3 has to be perfect, and we're not really getting the right balance off of it anymore. So give me a 4-2-3-1 any day. Damn. DJ Polar says, sorry, CB, 2 midfielders and a striker, Diamande from Sporting. Oh my gosh, it might be time to stop this stream because now I'm like all jacked up. You know, I'm going to read this comment. Diamande from Sporting, Zubimendi, and whoever that technical athlete is in midfield. Diamande is the one, by the way, you guys. If we're going to go get a center back, we need to go get him because he is going to save us if something were to happen to Gabriel or Saliba. You guys, we're going to end it there. I love you guys so much. I have now went completely blurry, and I don't know why. That's a sign for me to stop. Like this video, subscribe to the channel on your way out. There will be another pod available to you guys tomorrow that will feature the second part of the show that I did with Pippa on Arsenal women. And there's also going to be something with Anita. She's a Chelsea fan. She's been on the Football Terrace. It's an Arsenal women pod. So if you like Arsenal women, you'll enjoy the show tomorrow. And James is going to be on the show to talk about our attack on Friday. So I'll see y'all. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. See you guys later. Love y'all. You guys